deal now with Melbourne's fall from grace, finishing 6 and 8, giving up 7 20-plus leads on the back end of the season. CEO Gary Pert we'll hear from first, and then the Brisbane Lions midfielder Hugh McLuggage.
The way we started off the season, we were really strong, and I think we were playing the way that we wanted to play, and a lot of the teams couldn't really combat that. What I've seen as the season's gone on is teams have got better and better to try and find our shortfalls, or to strategically try and put us on the back foot.
We know how strong their aerial work is with Lever and May and those guys down there, so I think Sydney showed us the blueprint last week in the way they were able to scrap it forward and then just apply the pressure, and we got it going in the second half.
So Brisbane matched the pressure, and then if you can match the pressure just like Sydney did in the first final, well then you can overrun them after half time. And I think, Kano, just want to come to you, Kane, on this point. How teams worked their way through. Max Gawn behind the ball, May behind the ball, Lever. They have to find a new way next year, you would have thought, with how they've got through that part.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, Lordo. It feels like if they didn't score from centre bounce or from marking the ball in their back line and transitioning from there, that was the only two ways they could really score. And then once you had seen it, and Fremantle did it early on in the season, I think in round 11, then the others worked it out in the next couple of weeks. If you play a more chaotic game against them, then they really struggle to defend when they're not set up behind the ball and they don't have that control. So they've got to get more daring with the football, I think, and they've certainly got to have other avenues to go.
And the criticism will come, it's hard to believe, 12 months on, for the conservatism in the way they structure. A lot of Melbourne fans will ask the question. I mean, pretty happy Melbourne fans, it must be said 12 months ago, but the lack of dare in some of the changes, Petty not forward till too late, May didn't really get moved around. Do you think that they didn't do enough to evolve this team, and look at the kind of 2 changes year on year?
Yeah, I think their belief was so strong last year in winning the first 10 games that they thought things would just turn around. But when you lose 8 of your last 14 games, I think they had to be more aggressive. Even they were kicking to the boundary line and just wanting to lock the ball in the forward line rather than being bolder with their ball movement. But Jack Watts also said this, Caro, around the midway point to 3/4 of the way through the year, which had my eyebrows raised with maybe the off-field distractions at Melbourne.
And Melky and Hibbo off the piss for 4 weeks, they'll waltz into a flag, but that's the hardest thing of what the coaches and the Ds and all these teams have to do over the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, there you go. So there was niggling concerns in this team.
What do you do then? I want to ask you, Kane, which players would you lose patience with now if Goodwin was too patient before?
Well, I think they have the capability to bounce back pretty quickly. It's a tweak of the game plan. It's playing more brave. So personnel-wise, we'll get to that in a moment with what goes out and what comes back in. But in terms of what they've got and their personnel, they've committed long-term to Brayshaw and Oliver and Petrarca. They know that their time is now, in a way. So I don't think there'll be significant personnel changes. I'm not losing faith in anyone.
And they were pretty banged up, weren't they?
They were.
Friday night. I mean, Petrarca wasn't right, Gawn wasn't right, Fritsch wasn't right, there was illness. I mean... And
what happened mid-year with May and Melsham, that sort of leads a little bit to...
That was a sign of people getting ahead of themselves, quite frankly.
And Jackson didn't handle the scrutiny, and he looks inevitably out the door. How worried are you about that? And also Wiedemann and Brown, and where you go with them now, Lordo?
Kano, I'll go to you on this one, but 7 and 9 disposals in 2 finals. Do you think, as a young bloke, he just didn't handle the scrutiny? Because he's going to get it in Perth with his big deal.
Yeah, no, he didn't, clearly. I mean, he was really poor, and he'd be quite embarrassed by some of those physical efforts. He was in the position to mark the footy and didn't go. You get found out in finals. For a player that hasn't done a whole lot, we speak about him a whole lot. And, he plays one good game every 12, I reckon, Luke Jackson. So if he goes, I actually don't think it's the worst thing for Melbourne, because what you're going to get back is 2 first-round draft picks for him, so you shore up your future. You get Brodie Grundy in with Collingwood playing a large chunk of his wage, and he's a much better player than Luke Jackson is. So I think certainly in the short term, and if they get their drafting right with the picks they get for Jackson, this isn't a disaster at all, Luke Jackson leaving. I'm still not sure and not convinced he's a 250-game AFL player.
Is the money best spent on another ruckman?
For me, I just don't see Brodie Grundy as being a good forward. So that's what concerns me. How do the two of them operate in the same team?
Collingwood still believe they might be able to keep.
But I don't know how. If you're keeping De Goey and you're getting through McStay, Bobby Hill, they're even talking to the big ruckman from Adelaide, Kane. His name escapes me.
you don't.
Billy
Frampton, so you can get.
You don't believe that he'll take a pay cut, but I do.
No, but it needs to be bigger than that. It needs to be bigger than the pay cut. I'm talking. They have been struggling with salary cap for so long. They need to remove one player at least.